to the Wednesday, June 4th, 2025 Garrison Board of Education regular workshop meeting. Genevieve, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. Would you please call the roll?
Jocelyn Apicello.
Excused.
Eric Arnold.
Here.
Jennifer Harrington Wilson.
Here.
Dan Jasno.
Excused.
Peter Lesser.
Here.
Ken Shack.
Excused.
Sarah Torme.
Here. Okay. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up, I have accept agenda changes. Do I have any recommended changes this evening? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead then. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? All right, that brings us to the student spotlight part of our agenda. I'm going to go ahead and welcome up our students and Ms. Salvano. Come on up. Come on up, guys.
You guys can just kind of wait. Annabella's going to go first. You want to go up to, you can go up to the podium, right?
Yes, please. That allows us to record this so everyone can hear at home as well.
We do not have it. I think if I'm going to hold it close to you.
Do you want me to put
Okay, so this is my civics project, and this was on OCD. Okay, so my topic and the related SDGs. So my topic is OCD along with other similar anxiety and mental health issues. My topic relates to goal 3, good health and well-being, because of the impact that mental health can have on your overall health. So what OCD actually is. So a lot of people don't actually know what it is, however it's actually way more common than most people think. So OCD stands for obsessive compulsive disorder. It's characterized by intrusive thoughts, which are obsessions that cause anxiety, and then compulsions, which are meant to get rid of that anxiety. So OCD can look different for everyone because there are a lot of different types of it. So some different types of OCD. So there are a lot of different ways that it can be shown. It's usually used as a type of coping mechanism for people, but a lot of the times they don't realize that it's actually harming them in the process. So some different types of OCD are contamination OCD, symmetric OCD, and intrusive thoughts OCD. So contamination OCD is the persistent fear of getting contaminated by germs, dirt, or other things. Symmetric OCD is the feeling that you need to have stuff in order or in alignment. And then intrusive thoughts OCD is when you have a lot of unwanted and frustrating thoughts, images, or impulses. So misconceptions of OCD. So a lot of people tend to think that OCD automatically means that you're really neat or you're really clean. But a lot of the time, that's not the case. It can be the case, but usually people who have OCD and people who have OCD usually might prefer to act that way, but for somebody without it, it's kind of, or with it, it's kind of it feels like you kind of have to. Who does my project affect? So my project affects people of all ages, specifically adolescents, especially when it causes problems that affect families. So why does my project matter? My project matters because many people struggle with OCD, and it can cause issues with their families, their friends, and the overall people around them. OCD can also have a big impact on the way that people are feeling. So how OCD affects kids in school. So OCD affects kids in school by making it difficult to focus because of the thoughts that they're having. It can also affect like time management and other things because of the time that it can take when you're doing compulsions. Um, it can also affect social interaction, especially when the other person doesn't necessarily understand what they're going through and might think that it's kind of something that they're purposefully doing. So sometimes it can also create misunderstandings for families or relationships in general. So why I chose this topic? I chose this topic because I struggle with OCD, and I'm very passionate about spreading awareness for this issue because a lot of people who do have OCD don't always know that they do, and sometimes it can affect a lot more than they realize, and it's just a big struggle for a lot of people. My initial solution to this problem. So OCD is not something that necessarily has a complete solution. It's more like something that can be dealt with. So my initial solution was to spread awareness for OCD by maybe volunteering at a local organization. How I evaluated and refined my ideas. So I got a lot of feedback from the school counselor, Ms. Diego, and the school psychologist, Mr. Roper. And so they helped me to kind of organize my thoughts and figure out how to talk about what I was trying to spread awareness for. What I actually did. So Ms. Salvano and I reached out to the Hub, an organization also working to spread awareness for mental health. We set up a Zoom call, and I kind of asked them a few questions, and they gave me really good answers that kind of helped me to build this presentation, helped me to build the poster that Ms. Salvano was holding up, and just kind of helped me to like form my ideas into like sentences and into this. How you can help. So many people around you are probably going through something similar that you don't know anything about. So just understanding and kind of being able to empathize and being aware of that is also helpful. Just continuing to spread awareness, volunteering at any type of mental health organization around you can really help. Over there are some ways to help kids with OCD in school because that's usually where most kids or people who have OCD struggle when it comes to assignments or classes or that type of thing. So beneficial things about people with OCD. So there's no doubt that OCD can be debilitating and really hard for the people who have it, but there are also a few positive things that come out of it. So some of these are that people who have OCD are usually very empathetic, attentive, driven, and cautious people. They are usually very critical thinkers and can look at things from a lot of different points of view. And then websites and organizations that helped. Some websites that helped were the Phillipstown Hub, Nambu Putnam County, and Google. Some people that helped were Ms. Diego, Ms. Salvano, and my mom. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Annabelle. Before you go, may I see if anyone has questions or thoughts they want to share for you? Is that all right? Can we do that in between? Okay. Anyone have questions or thoughts they wish to share?
I did have a question. I was wondering what was the one thing you learned that you were most surprised by in your research?
I think something that surprised me a lot is that actually 1 in 4 people have OCD. So while a lot of people think that it's really rare and that it's not common, it's actually a lot more common than people think. And it's actually something that affects a lot of people and a lot of people around you that most people don't really realize and most people aren't aware of. So I originally thought that it was more of something that not a lot of people struggle with, but learning that like a lot of people around me also went through the same thing was kind of surprising, but also really cool.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. You did great, Jill.
Okay, so, hello, I'm Michaela. Caitlin, and she's Scarlett. And we, and
So our civics project is on drug addiction.
yeah. We chose to focus on UNSDG 3, which focused primarily on good health and well-being. We tied this UNSDG to drug addiction, which affects young or underage children, adults, and elderly people. That just proves how it affects everyone over the age of 12. About 5.4% of children ages 12 to 17 have a drug addiction. If you know 100 12 to 17-year-olds, approximately 5 of them would have a drug addiction. About 7.9% of adults from ages 35 to 49 have a drug addiction. And 5.6% of adults from ages 50 to 64 have a drug addiction. In elderly people, drug addiction is less likely, but still over 1%, so about 1.5% of people aged from 75 and older have a drug addiction. These are two graphs showing the statistics of deaths ages 12 and older from 1999 to 2019, and it keeps going up throughout the years.
We chose the topic drug addiction to spread awareness to our community, bring attention to people suffering, change a few minds, and prevent it from further spreading, because we know of families that have been split apart and destroyed because of one family member who sadly happens to be a drug addict. Drug addiction matters to us because it can lead to severe health consequences. Adding on, it typically leads to serious physical and mental health issues, including diseases, overdoses, and mental health disorders. Drug abuse also has a huge impact on family, as we stated before, including strained relationships, emotional distress, and financial difficulties. These examples can all be outcomes of drug abuse and addiction. Its economic impact can include a decreased work performance, more unemployment, and an increase in healthcare expenses.
No, that's a real problem. We started coming up with different solutions to help our community. For example, we thought of volunteering at a drug rehabilitation center, but we couldn't because of possible age restrictions, legal liability, training requirements, and safety concerns.
We also thought about setting up a stand at a local market or popular public place with stickers, bracelets, and obviously lots of information. You may ask, why didn't you? We didn't because we decided that it would be more beneficial to share our discoveries and action plans with you guys, our very own school community. This is why we decided to set up an informational presentation for you in hopes of you helping to spread awareness about drug addiction and how you can help prevent it.
Our final solution is to present our information to you guys and everyone at this board meeting, teaching you guys how to be aware of this issue and how you can help spread awareness about this issue. Now Scarlett's going to state a step-by-step action plan in order.
First, we brainstormed a problem that matters to us, which was drug addiction. Then we found out a possible solution to our problem. We then critiqued our solution so that we could use the public's voices to help solve our problem. We also tried contacting websites that support drug addiction prevention, and they gave us good information to form a solution around. Soon enough, we are gathering all the information we had collected and finding a way to share it to the public. We later created this presentation for you guys and our members of the board meetings to see. Finally, we are presenting our slideshow to you.
This far, if you are wondering how you can contribute to the solution, here are a few ways you can spread the word through the community, your family, and friends. You can donate to organizations that focus on preventing drug addictions, and you can volunteer at a drug rehabilitation center if you are obviously legal age. For the people that have suffered from drug addiction or abuse. And finally, you can find a different way to spread awareness. Anything helps.
Outreach, otherwise known as openly.org, is an organization that helps struggling and rehabilitating people to recover from substance use disorders and alcohol and drug addictions.
We encourage you to donate to this organization because it is a reliable, website that helps people struggling and in need. Scott will now read the quote from Outreach's website.
And I quote, "Outreach's treatment approach addresses real-life issues and challenges. Our recovery-focused environment protects from negative influences and stresses of daily life. Through our sessions, clients can learn the skills and tools they need for a successful life in recovery. Our highly credentialed, quality-focused, and always accessible staff ensure families receive the specialized care that they need." End quote. This organization makes it a point to add that.
Anyone, regardless of age, culture, background, or socioeconomic status, can be affected by alcohol or drugs. Outreach customizes an age-appropriate self-help model for the individual and involves family members in the process to improve the chances of a long life recovery.
So the ways you can donate is you can send money like straight from your phone, and you can also send money by chat if you would like to. And you can also donate without sending them money. You can send them money by buying stuff, and a percentage of it goes towards building healthy lives. And at the bottom, there's a screenshot from their website that shows you how you can do that. And these are the sites that we use. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation, and we hope you can assist us in spreading our ideas further out of our community.
Have a great day.
Before you go, I just want to see if anyone has any questions for Scarlett and Michaelan on their presentation.
Can I just make a comment? I just want to, number one, thank you, Ms. Valvano. I had the pleasure of, not all of them, but watching all of the 8th grade civic presentations, capstone presentations. And this is just Annabella, Michaelan, and Scarlett. Your presentations tonight were informative and really encompassed what we want here in Garrison and our vision of a graduate. You were resilient when things didn't go and you couldn't, volunteer somewhere because of age restrictions. You found another way to take a passion project and make the world around you better. And I think that just really encompasses what we try to establish here. So I want to thank the 3 of you and your classmates for that, Principal Emig and Ms. Valvano. You really truly are our futures, and I couldn't be more proud of you this evening, or more excited to see the things you do in the future, because you're going to make a difference in this world, that is for sure. So thank you for that.
All right. Thank you again, Ms. Valvano. And just for everyone at the board table, this is only our third year doing the civics capstone projects, so that all the students can receive, if they qualify, a point towards their civic skill readiness on their high school diploma. So thank you for taking the time to do this initiative. I know there's now class time dedicated to this in the middle school. I think that's wonderful. So it's great to see the year-end product. And thank you, students, for coming out tonight. You are also welcome to stay for the full board meeting, but you do not.
Don't do it. Go home.
Thank you so much. Okay. So that segues into the board president's remarks. And I don't do this every meeting, but I added it back in because there's been so many events and things happening in our district that the board members have been invited to, one of which I attended was the Youth Climate Summit. We've done this in the past. I came and did the speeches, but this year I was invited to stay for some of the workshops, which I really appreciated. And I would encourage board members next year to come and attend and see the culmination of this work. Being an environmental leader in education is very important to our district. It's something we really focus on, and the day really highlighted how we live up to that. And it was lovely to see people from outside, politicians come in and speak, but also just really hear from our students. There were student-led workshops this year There were a lot of different organizations that came in. I made a bag out of an old shirt, which I thought was pretty cool, alongside students, which was really fun. I did a workshop with James O'Neill High School students that I thought was really well led. It was wonderful to see our partner high schools connecting with our students here, bringing their own ideas to the table. I thought it was a really student-focused day. That was the thing I took away as being one of the most impressive things. So I want to thank everyone involved in making that day happen. And then also, this Monday, Greg and I went to the Westchester Putnam School Board Association dinner. This is open to all school board members. It hadn't managed to make it down that far south in the past for this dinner. I thought it was really informative. The guest speaker was Scott Levy, who has served on Byram Hills Board for years and is writing a book called Why School Boards Matter that will come out in September. And I would encourage everyone to take a look at this book. I think it's a really interesting discussion about why we're here, why we're volunteering our time and energy to school boards, what is our role in the community, and what decisions really should rest with us, and what decisions don't rest with us, and how we communicate that out. That was one of my big takeaways. There's a lot that we can't control, and communicating to the community on that, I think, could be something we could work towards too. It's always something I personally struggle with. There are events throughout the year with Westchester Putnam School Boards Association, so I'd encourage members, as there are NISBA events as well, to attend, whether it's an online or in-person workshop. It's great to hear about what is happening in other school districts and what they're doing. So if there's ever anything that you are interested in attending, please reach out. I think it's really important. That's all I have for my presence remarks. We do have a lot, I will add one more thing, sorry. We have a lot of school events towards the end of the year, and they are open to board members to attend, such as graduation, both at the high schools and here. So if you ever want to come and see sort of what happens at the end of all this that we work towards, it's great to participate. I know you went to Haldane last year, so it's lovely for us to be connected to some of our high schools as well as our 8th graders as they graduate. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Scholl for superintendent's report. It'll be a lot more formal.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah, Board of Education community members. You probably got used to pretty short superintendent's report. I have some bad news. This one's going to be a little longer, given the time of year we're at, and we have some really exciting things to share with you and with our community, and always about our students. So number one, I'd be remiss, this is our first board meeting after our budget vote. I want to thank the community for their support. Our school budget was approved over 76%. Our extension with our high school, with extension of our instructional contract with Putnam Valley was approved overwhelmingly, and for Sarah and Ken, congratulations on your re-election. And again, we really want to thank our public for supporting the Garrison schools. They couldn't be here tonight. I did try to get us a musical interlude, but our students had some pretty compelling reasons not to be here with us this evening. But we had 14 students participate in NISMA, and for those of you that don't know, NISMA is the New York State Association, the New York State School Music Association, and really what it is, it's a kind of our kids go and they perform, they memorize scales, they do a solo performance. It's pretty heavy-duty stuff. They practice and they really work hard to kind of perfect their particular instrument. I'm not going to name everybody first and last name, but I'll say Susanna, Roman, Emmy, Perla, Miles, Mason, Alex, Brianna, Hudson, Violet, Nate, Bechet, Everett, and Grayson all performed. That's 14 students from a small school all performing at NISMA. They all did incredibly well. Everybody scored in the top 2 categories. I will tell you that out of the 14, 8 of our students performed at the highest category, which is outstanding, and 6 were in the excellent. That is an incredible accomplishment. So I want to thank Mr. Barone. I want to thank the Board of Ed for supporting our music program that is getting better and better every year. And I want to thank the parents of these students that had to listen hours on end as they practice these instruments. And I'm sure when they're very young, it sounds very different than what the high level that they're playing at now. So I just want to personally let the community know what incredible students we have, what an incredible music program. We appreciate the support, and we really want to acknowledge these students for their efforts. I mean, I've been in a lot of districts, and everybody that participates in NYSSMA doesn't always perform in the top 2 categories. To have a group of middle schoolers do that is remarkable. So congratulations to all of them. Speaking of music, we had an incredible spring concert on May 22nd. We had our chorus, both elementary and middle school. We had our rock jazz ensemble, our both elementary and middle school bands. And I have to say, I have never seen the gymnasium so packed. We usually put out about 100 to 125 chairs, because that's usually the audience. But they must have known, the families and grandparents and friends must have known that it was going to be an incredible performance, because it was. But we had to bring more chairs in, and the kids sounded amazing. They were excited. They got to choose the music that they either sang or selected, and at the end, we had chorus and bands playing together, and it just was a really magical evening. And I want to congratulate Mr. Barone, I want to congratulate Linda, and congratulate everybody for an incredible concert. We really want to celebrate that. And thank you to the families and grandparents and cousins and uncles and everybody that showed up. Having a packed house, everybody was dancing. It just was really an incredible evening. I want to echo a little bit about what Sarah said about our Youth Climate Summit. I think she couldn't have said it better. It was so student-centered. It was exactly what we wanted our climate summit to be. Ms. Bucola, our new environmental educator, did an outstanding job of having the right mix of listen to presentation, hands-on activities. We had the right mix of experts, from NYSERDA to the Environmental Education Center from Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES, the Quebec Hydro folks that are putting together sustainable energy into this region. They came and explained their project. And students from O'Neill, students from Haldane, students from Putnam Valley, and students from middle school in Katona Lewisboro all came here to participate in the day. And I just have to, and our teachers were fabulous on making sure they were involved. They were even though they weren't presenting, they were in the sessions with the students. And I have to thank our kids. They're remarkable. And the presentations were high level, the kids were enthusiastic, engaged, and the day was just incredible. So I'm going to echo everything Sarah said. I'm going to leave it on this. So Regent Dr. Fran Wills was with us, as well as Dana Levenberg, our assembly person. And Fran Wills is a 40-year veteran of an educator. She's a former superintendent. She knows education. One of the people that I think is really the great educational minds in New York State. She turned to me and she said, "Greg, this is how schools are supposed to be." And to me, there was no higher compliment than someone like Dr. Wills, just out of the blue, telling us that Garrison is how schools are supposed to be. I can't argue with that. So the day was an incredible success. So thank you to the board, the community, our staff, Ms. Bucola, Principal Emig, for everything you do to make this place what it's supposed to be. Don't know why I'm not. It just does not want to transition, does it? There we go. All right, so lunch, school lunch update. Again, thank you, community. It's in our budget to do a school lunch program. And I have some good news and I have some not so good news. Number one, I think we said, and the devil's in the details, we were working with Hendrick Hudson. They were all ready to work with us on subsidizing or supporting our not subsidizing, but supporting our school lunch program by making meals and us having to go get them and us being able to serve them. What made this possible and more flexible is that they were not part of a national school lunch program. Well, a funny thing happened between the time we were engaging with them, budget votes, and last week, is New York State approved the universal lunch program. Now, one of the caveats of the universal lunch program is that if one of your school buildings in your FSA, which is your food service authority, is a federal school lunch program, they all have to be. As you recall, or you may not recall, only the high school in Hendrick Hudson was not part of the federal lunch program, and that is why we were able to kind of be flexible and partner with them. Well, they're going to have to go an all-federal school lunch program, which means they're going to have to revamp what they do at their high school to be in compliance with it. Number two, their food service director is retiring. And number three, all of their staff in their high school food service staff is retiring. So unfortunately, they said, given all these changes, we really don't think right now is the time to support Garrison, because we're going to need some time to kind of get ourselves kind of ramped up and ready to go for September. And, understood. However, we did reach out to another school who will be not named yet until we get a little.
Be named number two.
Number two, and we had Joe and I had a very promising call. What is different about this particular district is their food service staff is, unlike Hendrick Hudson, is, I won't say which agency, but a food service, school food service agency, and they have their own staff. They've already spoken to their kind of bosses in their food service agency. The district is willing to kind of partner with us, and now it's just about making sure that the two business officials talk and look about the devils in the details. So we are going to bring more information back to the community, and this was a very promising outcome just as recent as this morning. And
do you want to pause there?
Yes, I
because
do.
before we move on, I'd like to, there's a couple key points on here that I think we're going to need to communicate repeatedly should we follow this next step path. The first is this is a 5-day program. This eliminates Pizza Fridays as a fundraiser because we would become part of a national school lunch program should we do this. What that means, and you guys jump in if I'm not stating this correctly, but it means that school lunch is free for all if we do this. Free meaning we subsidize it.
Right.
And somebody has to pay. The lunch doesn't just fly here for free. And Pizza Friday does not meet any of the guidelines in the National School Lunch Program, so it cannot be part of this. So
one of the things, and Joe and I we've learned a lot about food service and the federal lunch program and the new universal New York State lunch program is you can't, if you're open 5 days a week, you have to provide a federal lunch meal that hits all the requirements. You can't say, well, we'll do 4 and do Pizza Fridays on the day 5, which would be great, but once you're part of a federal school lunch program, you can't do it. And if we partner with the district and we become what they call an RA of that FSA, that Food Service Authority, we have to comply with their food service program, and they will be responsible to make sure we're in compliance. So we kind of have to go all in. There's no dipping your toe in the water in this one.
So a couple of things that I don't think we're at the stage yet where obviously we're having a public discussion on this, but I would say hopefully if all goes well and all the ducks line up, by the next meeting we could look to do this perhaps, or sometime in a future meeting. The questions board members are going to need to think about, we've already set our budget for next year, so we need to figure out funding for this. And so how much are we willing to subsidize? In addition, we'll get some money back from the state, but I believe it's limited at around $5 per lunch purchased. So we knew our cost before food was $5.80 with personnel, so that's something to think about. And then, so just start thinking about your questions around these. And then there were other options that the committee came up with, Jen, of maybe partnering with businesses, whether we should start to look at that model too. So those are just things to think about.
So just for clarification, it would mean that all students would be eligible for free lunch?
Every student, yes.
Okay.
The parents would not have to pay for lunch regardless of socioeconomic status.
And do we know how much money the pizza fundraiser nets for the?
I can pull that number pretty easily,
Yeah,
but
I was wondering what downstream effect that would have on not.
so, I mean, having had 2 8th graders, I would say, yes, they would have to find another way to fundraise. I think, from just speaking on my personal opinion, I think that it is something they can do. They could, I know this is a tradition, there will be some pushback that, this is the way we've always done it, done this Pizza Friday fundraiser for their big 8th grade trip. And I think the trip is fantastic, along with the other things they fundraise for. But I wouldn't sacrifice a lunch program for all the students so that the 8th graders can raise some money. I'm sure there's other ways we can do this if we would get creative and think about it. They're creative students. And honestly, it's up to the students how they should fundraise. It really shouldn't be a handed-down every year. They should be coming as part of this. They should be coming up with the ideas. It should not be handed down by an advisor. It should not be dictated by parents. This should be led by the 8th grade. So I think that's a really wonderful challenge that obviously their advisors will help them with. But I don't want to sacrifice school lunch for everyone for this. And I think there's no, unless we do a one or other day with a local business,
Is it like a huge number, like $20,000, I think, right?
No, I don't think so. But I have to pull the number, honestly, I have it somewhere. But I think.
You kind of wonder if a fundraising project, we've heard wonderful things about civics, like is there a way to sort of almost tie it into like a curricular thing in some way, like fundraise?
Yeah, I think in a way it does. It sort of kicks the problem back to the students, saying, all right, you have a problem to solve. Like, start thinking about how do you fundraise? You have to have more meetings. This isn't somebody saying you have to do it the way it's always been done. I think it's kind of a wonderful challenge. And I mean, honestly, go back to these climate summits. That's what I saw the whole day, was kids coming in and being like, there was somebody from the local planning board here at one of the workshops that I sat in briefly, where the kids were like designing where the sewer systems would go for the water runoff. And like, any problem you gave them, they were like, oh, okay, I guess, like, they were engaged. I think it's a great problem for kids to have to solve, is how do we raise the money for our trip? And it doesn't, but that's just my opinion on this. And I do think we are closer than we've ever been. And I really appreciate Greg and Joe's willingness to continue down this path and really not just say, oh, it's too hard, it can't be done. There is a real willingness here, right? This partner can't work with us for very good reasons, which are understandable, but we're going to look again. We're going to keep going with this. So I know we talked about this before the budget passage, was like, we don't want to lose the momentum right now either. So I think one question I would have for everyone is sort of how do we handle that with, the community? Because I do understand change can be scary for people, but I think this might be a really worthwhile one. So just something to think about for when we bring this back, and if you hear from other community members their thoughts, I just appreciate those too. Did I lose anything else? Did anyone have any questions? I know you guys sent around a really interesting video that may or may not put you to sleep about all the requirements of school lunch. If anyone else watched all 48 minutes of it.
The only thing I would add to that, for those of you who didn't watch the 48-minute video of macronutrients and what each meal unit has to comply with at the different age levels, at the different grades, like, it's a pretty complex endeavor when you do this, and that's why we really would more heavily have to rely on a partner. So what I can tell the board is that Joe and I will work on kind of refining this to the point where it becomes a reality and a decision for the board to engage with. And then the next question is, number one, how do we inform the community about what this would look like if the board decides to move forward with it? Number two, how do we inform the community that there will be another way, particularly for those 8th grade families, for students to problem solve? Our kids are capable. They're doing it in 5th grade, problem solving how to use the biodigester. I mean, they know how to do this work. We've taught them well. And the only thing that I would say that I'm not sure I put up there, in order to become a new RA, the application has to be in by July 31st, I believe, Joe?
Yeah.
So if we miss that window, I'm just going to say this, that's the one thing in terms of timeline. If we miss the July 31st window, we'll certainly, and our discussion with the district that shall remain nameless, is they don't think that's, if we're able to go, we think we can hit that timeline. But for the board, we're gonna have to talk about decisions about doing the application by that time. So that's the one thing that I didn't mention that I should mention to the board.
Would this change the staffing requirements for the equipment, like?
Probably,
Needs?
probably not. I would say the one thing that's kind of a if is whether or not you use washable trays or you use disposable trays. That would it could be a change depending upon what advice we get from who's helping us. The other thing that may or may not change is if the food service management company is able to staff here. It could be a possibility or might be desirable, because then if they're able to do that, possibly you could, they would have coverage in case somebody was sick, because we are hiring 2 people and they're the only 2 people that do school lunch. What happens when one of them's out, right? So, there's a lot of details to work out, but we have another promising possible avenue.
Great.
I just looked, I don't have the numbers. I think we should ask the 8th grade class treasurer for those numbers and maybe drop them into a weekly update as to how much they're doing. 'Cause they
Yeah,
should-
we can get it for like a board update or whatever.
And I'll do it for Friday. I'll get it to the board for this Friday.
I was just told I was done fundraising, not that what it is. Just
Well, at
stop.
least that was definitive.
It's definitive, we're done. All right, I think that's it. Anything else on school lunch? All right. This one?
Yes, this is. So, part of my superintendent's update is to update the community and the board a little bit about the brand new legislation that is out, which is a ban on internet-enabled devices bell to bell. That means passing time, lunch, recess. There is a ban on any internet-enabled devices with a few caveats. The couple things, we have to adopt a policy as a board of, all boards of education in New York have to adopt a policy. And there are certain things that have to be in the policy and the procedures. One is parents and guardians need to have a way to contact during the school day. I'll get into a minute at the end here. Like, we do have that already. We've kind of have a lot of this figured out. For us, not having a high school makes it, I'm not going to say easy, but less complicated. Schools may authorize the use of personal internet-enabled devices for medical reasons, kids that are on glucose monitoring and use their phones to monitor their glucose for diabetes, students who need them for translation support, any student with an IEP or 504 that requires the use of an internet-enabled device. So it also requires, as I said, a written policy and a consultation. So this evening, I did send out a message to the community and opened it up to a community forum so that we could get parents to and guardians to engage with us. I will, that's one stakeholder group. Looking at the audience tonight, I'll have to find another way to engage with them. The other group is I'm going to meet with our teachers union this month, talk to them about it, and I'm going to meet with our student government and talk with them about it to get some feedback about this new legislation. The other thing that we need to do by the end, by September of 2026, is be able to report out on the infractions of this policy. In year one, suspension cannot be, you cannot suspend a student out of school for violating the internet device ban. So those are the pretty big components. You do have some leverage. You do in your policy have to identify where they're going to be stored. And this goes for all students. So one of the things to just remember is, like, some of our watches are internet enabled, and even some of our younger kids, I've seen them with internet enabled watches and other devices, and I think that's probably for us We can kind of handle the cell phones with our middle school students. We can handle it if some 4th or 5th graders have cell phones, kids have cubbies, we can put it in there. But I think the part that we're going to have to enlist our teachers and our educators and our families is, like, that also means like smartwatches, and other devices.
So Dr. Stoll, it's non-school issues, so students can still use their Chromebooks
Of
during the
course,
school day?
correct. So we have, we're pretty much a one-to-one school, meaning we have a device for every kid. So if a kid needs, for educational purposes, to be connected to the internet for educational reasons, we have devices we can provide them. I think for some schools, not us, that aren't a one-to-one and do a BYOD, bring your own device policy, like, that's gonna be a stretch for them. But for us, we're in a pretty good place, and that is not really gonna disrupt our kids' ability to access computer-assisted instruction online or anything. I did, at the beginning of the year, I don't know if anybody remembers, says that we're gonna do a little assessment of what our kids think about our cell phone. It's not a ban, it was, it was whatever, in our code of conduct, of just limiting the use of cell phones during the instructional day is really what we said. And surprisingly enough, put out a survey. This is not all of it, but I wanted to give a snippet. So we asked our students, how has the new cell phone restriction affected your ability to focus in class? And I will just say a majority of the kids said it really didn't have an effect, other than maybe somewhat worsened my ability to focus in class. When you ask the teachers, however, our teacher said, oh man, this improved like by 83%. It really helped us, you know. So the kids have a little bit of a different perspective than our staff. We asked kids how they felt about it, and I would tell you that just in general about the restriction. And 30% strongly opposed, and another 27 somewhat opposed. So almost 60% of our kids are like opposed to it, and some were indifferent, and only 9.3% supported the cell phone.
No, 30% strongly agreed.
No, they opposed. The
30% is neutral,
30% is neutral, 32% is neutral. So those kids had no opinion. Maybe they don't have cell phones, I don't know. But if you look at our teachers, this is just middle school, by the way, so the N is 6, but 100% of our teachers supported the restrictions in cell phones. So you can see how there's a different perception with our kids and with our teachers. Now, we asked them, have you noticed changes in your social interactions since the cell phone? And 74% of the students have said, not really, and I don't know why some of them said like 7% peer-to-peer interactions. So, and I would say there's, I would say that, like, what have our teachers said? Have you noticed any changes in social interaction? And I would say, like, only 32% there was no change, and they pretty much said they've seen a better, like, student-to-student interaction in it. We're looking at how has the cell phone affected your overall school experience, and I would say more than half of our students said there's really no change in their school experience, and I would say only 11% said it was positive, in terms of, affecting their overall school experience. And the teachers, overwhelmingly said that, it was very positive in terms of their school experience. So, as you see, this is what our kids and our teachers think about it. It's mixed bag, a little bit opposed by our students, and it's very supported by our staff, and they are finding that kids are more engaged socially, and they're finding that it's easier for them to get our kids to be engaged in the academics that are going on and remain focused. So I'm going to stop there and ask the board if they have any questions. I know we have a community forum this evening, but if the board has any questions on the new policy or the survey results.
I can save my questions for the
Great.
forum.
Just a couple.
Lively too.
Yeah, I shared this is gonna be a longer superintendent's report, but this is the time of year where we do a lot of celebrations. I just wanna remind the community, remind the board, that on June sixth at 10 a.m., we have our 8th grade award ceremony. On June 12th, from 6 to 9 p.m., we have our 7th and 8th grade end of year dance. Just for those taking the living environment regions, June 17th. June 18th is the algebra readings exam. Just a reminder, on June 19th, for the observance of Juneteenth, we are closed. June 20th, field day for grades 3 through 8. Today we had a field day for grades K2. We had a beautiful day. The kids had an exceptional time, and our middle schoolers helped out today, and they were incredible. Everybody had fun. June 23rd is pre-K graduation. June 23rd is also the 8th grade graduation, and because of the snow give back days, June 24th becomes our last day of school, and a dismissal at 11:15 a.m. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you. I have one question I've heard from the community a number of times. 8th graders, are they supposed to be here on the 24th, or are they done on the 23rd?
Allison, they're here on the 8th graders on the last day of school. They're here.
They come, so they come the day
It's a
after
day of
graduation.
Oh, yeah, they
Yeah.
come last day.
It is a day of instruction.
That might need clarifying in the community.
They'll be signing, their
That may be.
yearbooks and.
Yeah, so if
I'll-
any 8th
I'll-
grade parents are watching tonight,
Yeah.
please make sure your 8th grader comes to the last day of school. We have a tradition of a send-off at the end of the school
Yeah.
year, and we want to make sure they're part of it.
I'm gonna send those questions on to you then, Allison.
Send them my way.
Okay.
Great.
Any other questions on the superintendent's report before I move on? All right. That brings me to our community forum. So this evening we are having the bell-to-bell internet-enabled device ban community forum. We're going to begin with an overview, although I think we've got a pretty good summary right now. Then I'm going to open up the discussion to board members. After that, I'm going to open the discussion up to members of the public. This is a community forum, meaning we can have a back and forth if there's no one here from the community. But if you ever do come to a community forum, this is one of the times where we are able to answer questions and really engage in the public in this public forum. Unlike when you come up for a public comment, where we do not engage. So just something to keep in mind if you wish to come to a future community forum. And then I'm going to close the community forum. So right now, I'm going to turn it over. Do you have anything else you wish to add?
Yeah,
to
the
overview?
only thing I'll add, because I think I pretty much went through the provisions of the bullet points of the new law, is that if any community member is watching this and couldn't come here for the community forum, please reach out to me. I'm happy to have a meeting with you if you want to share your thoughts about the new cell phone ban, concerns that you have, questions that you have. Happy to meet with you, phone call, Zoom, whatever. So please reach out, engage with me, as all 700 plus districts are going to be engaging in this. And given our flexibility, somewhat flexibility, we'll be able to take that feedback and create a policy that makes sense for Garrison.
All right. Board members, do you have any questions? I can jump in with a couple here. The first actually is just a clarifying comment, and I think, Greg, you've heard this as well. To make sure the community understands that we do not have a choice in this. We're not holding this forum to say should we or should we not. This is, every school district must do this. So the discussion is going to revolve entirely around how we do this. And I think that's really important to share with our community and make sure that's understood. Because I have heard that a little bit. We're not opting into anything. My big question, because we have a deadline on this, and we're reaching the end of the year. Policy committee, this is going to start with you. What do you need from the board at this time? Do you want to start in committee with this and really hash through
So
it?
we already spoke about it at our last meeting as
Okay.
part of the policy committee report that we
Great.
were, and we had talked about Bristol about sort of guidance and a sample policy, and then we were ready to reconvene once we had that. So hopefully at our August board meeting,
just an update to the board. Erie 1 did not come out with, but NISBA did. I have it. I made some edits to it. I sent it over for legal review, and then I'll review with the policy committee. Because we do have a deadline by August 1st that the boards have, like, which makes no sense to me, that you're gonna come up with a law and then ask boards of education. You know, you just passed the law less than a month ago and say by August 1, you need to have policy adopted.
How do you
by the
even
board.
do 2 meetings?
So we'd have to basically have the policy by the next meeting or waive the 2 readings, which we can do.
Yeah.
So I think we might wanna waive it, but then that still only brings us to the rework because that's our only current public meeting scheduled for July. So that is a very close date for this policy.
We have a month.
Yeah, there you go. So just keeping that timeline in mind as we're.
Well, so this is what I would also say as a policy committee, it doesn't
The
mean we
policy
don't.
committee, right.
It's right here, and it doesn't mean we don't, it doesn't mean we don't adopt a policy that we then modify at the next board.
Okay.
So we can meet the guidelines of the requirement, and then we can always, as we do, amend policies all the time. And we might need to amend it after 6 weeks, we might find that there's something, so we just need to be open to that it could be more of a moving target than other policies based on the timeline the government has set for us to work this magic.
Do we foresee as a district any issues, based, because obviously this is being added in, and now we're going to be monitoring cell phone watch use, not only in the classroom, but at lunch and recess? Is that just training time in the beginning of the year? Do we have enough resources available to implement this?
It's, you know, we're gonna have to work as a faculty. It can't just be principal.
Oh, wave your
hands,
arms.
everybody.
Everybody dance.
There we go.
There we go.
Something I said. It can't just be, you know, Allison or myself walking around checking for internet-enabled devices. That's not a good use of time, and our teachers have to be part of the solution. So we still have to engage with them on how they're going to monitor our aides and assistants that kind of help out with recess, and then talk about in our code of conduct, what does it look like when a student, we don't want to be punitive. This is, to me, like, makes no sense to be punitive about this stuff. But again, I think we're going to have to grapple with, you know, procedure-wise, how do we handle this? So yeah, it's going to be another thing put on teachers' plates. It's not just administrators. It's another thing put on administrators' plates, and obviously another thing put on board members' plates to kind of, you know, establish a policy for this.
Can I just add that I also think it's on parents as well, and I have seen a lot of districts recommending just don't send them to school.
Yeah.
You can avoid a lot of potential conflict and issues if we all educate the students and parents educate their children that, look, this is not the school deciding this has been decided for the school, and you can have your watch when you get home, or you can have your tablet when you get home. When you're in school, use the phone book that the school gives you, and just don't send it. And I think that message, especially initially, as we work through how it is going to happen, will prevent a lot of issues on all ends.
I would have questions, and maybe that is something the policy committee can look at, as to if we do end up with a device being taken away or held due to use, how do we handle that? How do we keep it safe? What is the district's liability? And making sure that we don't, you know, put our staff, especially in an uncomfortable situation, by having ownership for a period of time of a child's personal device.
The sample policy does have language around that, while we try to keep it safe, the teacher or the district is not responsible for it, because they shouldn't be here, right? So that, you know, if we create a space, it's in your locker, that's where we say, let's say that's where we say, or in your cubby, there's language in the sample policy that kind of limits our responsibility to make sure that it doesn't go missing from the locker or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be good to once we have those policies in place, to you know, obviously share the policies with the public, but also a set of recommendations. You know, like Jen was saying, like, because of this policy, look, we're not responsible if something goes wrong, so you're going to risk it. You know, and you know, it slides out of your cubby, or somebody or an administrator accidentally drops it. It's not their responsibility. It's better just to keep it at home.
Although They are allowed on buses, is that correct? Because I do know some students have longer bus rides than others.
It's bell to bell. So that bell is not, like when you're on the bus, that is fine. It's when the instructional day starts to the dismissal time. So after school sports, after school activities, fine, but it's bell to bell instruction.
Yeah, I mean, it's also
Yep, we'll get you an name.
just when we do send this out to, inform the public of why the state has done this and why maybe we agree with it, or I don't know if we want to say that, but like, why this is, they think this is important, not just some draconian policy, but like, it's for a reason. To encourage interaction and focus that we all want.
Yeah, absolutely. Ted, welcome. We are in the middle of our bell-to-bell internet-enabled device community forum. We're at the point now, I know, we're with the community, such as it is, and where board members are sharing thoughts and questions for us to discuss, keeping in mind that we have to have a policy for this by August 1st. So if you have any questions or thoughts, you're welcome to jump in and share them, but I don't want to put you on the spot.
Sorry. You've done so. I saw the survey results and thought that was very interesting, just the general thoughts of the teachers and what a difference it's made this year. I also heard from students my own that it's really not that big a deal. But I heard from my older student, she's pretty upset about it and not happy about it. Being
The high school
high
level.
school students.
Yeah.
So I'm really here to listen more than anything else. Obviously, I don't have a ton of flexibility anyway. So.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we talked about is like having to communicate to the public that it's not our choice. We're not opting into anything. Because that is, thank you, sorry, on the spot as you walked in. All right, do I have any other thoughts or questions on cell phone ban? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and open it to the public. I don't have any members of the public present wishing to
They went
comment.
home to put their cell phones away.
Yeah. I would encourage, if you're watching this meeting later at home, there will likely be, I know there will be forums right around back to school time when we talk about the code of conduct. Those again are open forums, so please come to those if you have questions or concerns if you're able to, or come to any other meeting. The reorg's super fun and long too. But so come and engage with us if you have any questions on this issue. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the community forum at this time. All right, this brings us to board communications and presentations. That's the capital project update. All right, Joe, go ahead and give this over to you.
Thank you. No, I'm okay. Well, thank you. One of the things we wanted to do for the board and the community, we've talked about a lot of capital projects, and for those of you that don't work in public education, capital projects may seem simple, like fixing a roof, but there's a lot of steps to it, and we want to let the public know and let the board know what is the status of all the capital projects that we have outstanding. So the agenda for today is we put these capital projects in 3 phases, so we're going to explain the phases to the community and the board. We're going to talk about what is the status of those particular projects in each phase, and who is the team working on making sure those things get completed. We're going to overview the project approval process, the wait time, and these different projects have different types of wait time, depending on if they're grant funded, not grant funded, the complexity of the capital project, and the different authorizations we need from whether it be the New York State Education Facilities and Planning or other entities that may be out there that we require approval. Joe's going to also talk about bid versus competitive contracting, and also everybody wants to know, well, when are these things going to be done? We're going to give you our projected and best estimate if everything goes perfectly, and so that's what we're going to do this evening. So the first phase just to let everybody know, I'm sorry if you can't see it, but these projects take a long time, is we call phase one, and that is the emergency roof project, which we've talked about a lot, and the gym roof replacement project, and the electric water heater project. And all of those projects were approved, the gym roof replacement, the electric water heater in the previous school year's budget, and this summer, the emergency roof project because of the wind shear that took off a piece of the roof in July. And out of all those projects in phase one, the emergency roof is the only one that has been completed, and Joe will go through that. I'm going to hand it over to Joe.
Thanks, Greg. I think one of the things that you need to know about emergency projects is they act completely differently than all the other projects. So what happens is once the board declares it an emergency, they can start doing the work to fix it. So the project consists of a flat roof over the original section of the building. It delaminated. We had a wind event, basically peeled it like a banana. And you can see in the picture at the top what it looked like. And that's exposed roof insulation, which was getting wet and water was getting in the attic. We had buckets and hoses and stuff to get it out of there until we were able to get it temped out. And then the roof had a asbestos containing waterproofing layer at the very lower level right above the deck, and that had to be removed. And it was declared emergency in August of 2024. And that's when the board approved budget for it and used undesignated fund balance to do it. We did the abatement on Columbus Day, or Indigenous Peoples Day, because it has to be done when kids are not in the building. You can have staff in the building, but you can't have kids. The project team was CPL Architects, Vanguard Roofing. That was used a cooperative contract. So the New York State municipal bidding requirements allow you to use contracts that are based upon either best value or a competitive bid. And this is a best value contract that we had access to, so we could just use it. In truth, because it was an emergency, you could use just anyone, but we used a cooperative contract, and then we used EMC to do the abatement design and monitoring. So EMC, you have to have a third party that is not the architect and is not the contractor, that has to monitor while the abatement is going on, that it's done correctly, and that when they're done, they've removed all the asbestos. So that company did that part. So the work was actually done in October. So it was started on Columbus Day and it was finished in October. We submitted our paperwork to SED through the architect in December. It was approved March 28th, and then they backdated to when the board declared it an emergency, and that's how it works. And then, so March 28th, we had the architect issued a certificate of substantial completion, and that project is done. So that's good. So the electric water heater project, we have two oil-fired hot water heaters, one right off the cafeteria in the old boiler room, and then one that was in the boiler room in the middle school adjacent to the gym. We have to remove oil day tanks and associated plumbing. So in each boiler room, there's a 50-gallon what's called a day tank, which is where the boilers and the water heater would draw fuel from, that was pumped out of the 10,000-gallon tank that's in the ground up by the parking lot. We did get a SAM state grant for $90,000, and the public approved a transfer from the Capital Reserve Fund, $45,000, and that was in the May 2023 budget vote. So we have SED approval for this project, but it is still not approved yet by New York State for the grant. So this is a grant that it's not typical that schools get this grant, but we did happen to get it. And what we got back from a legislative staffer was that the grant will be circulated amongst state agencies for final approvals, after which the state can begin to draft a grant disbursement agreement, and then it could take 3 months, but it has taken longer in the past. So if they did 3 months, it would be June 15th. So the project team is the architect, and then we would need a plumber to do this, because the electrical work, basically we have electric service to the locations where these water heaters are gonna go. So we have a new service from the main distribution panel back to the boiler rooms where these are gonna be, and all the plumber has to do is connect a whip to the disconnect that's already there. So it's really not a complicated project, we're just waiting for the money. Once we have the approval that the money is allocated and we're allowed to continue, we would bid this out. It probably would take about a month and a half between letting out a bid and then awarding it, and then we can get to work. If the grant's approved by June, we could award a contract by August. We would target, the only thing that really needs to be done when kids are not in the building is there is some plumbing for the oil that goes from one side of the building to the other. And anytime if you have questions, just stop me and ask them.
Okay.
All right, so there's piping that goes from one side of the building to the other. When we cut that open, you'll smell like fuel oil. So we wouldn't do that when the kids are in. So we have a habit of trying to do things on Columbus Day. So we would, if it would work out, we would do the piping removals then. And then we estimate we could be substantially complete by February of next year.
So this is a project that started in '23 and may be completed in '26.
Yes.
Due to funding, the state,
Yeah.
and everything, that's important to keep in mind as we talk.
Yeah. So it is a long time, and it's partly there's a few things. I mean, this is a grant that schools don't typically get, so they don't know how we have to work, and we don't know how they have to work, and there's a little bit of that. And we can only do so much with the planning. We got to the second stage of grant approval, and then we told the architect to go ahead. But we don't actually have money to really hire a contractor until they give us the funding. So then we have the gym roof project. We have to replace the gym roof, and it's original to the 2002 edition, and that's a shingle roof. That's basically you're at the life. It has a different kind of grant. It's called a CREST grant, Community Resiliency, and then some other acronyms. I don't know what they are. And then it's $125,000 for that. And then as a part of the last budget for the year we're in now, the public authorized a transfer of $125,000 for this one. So we got a request from the Ways and Means Committee of the Assembly on May 19th to give them revised numbers. So I did have a contractor come out, and I got numbers this afternoon, which I haven't really looked at yet, to be able to give the Assembly the information they're asking for, and then it'll get in that's the first step of that approval. And I'm not sure how many there are, but there's at least that's the first one. All right. And the team for that is the architect, and it's just a roofing contractor because in buildings that were built in 2002, there's not asbestos, so we don't have to do any of that. So we don't really have a good idea on how long it's going to take for the state to approve the money, but if If they approve the grant, at least through the state for the money, we can then have the architect start working. We can award a contract in July, begin roofing in August, and be complete by November of 2026. So, this, yes.
Wasn't this budgeted in the budget for the whole amount? Like, we weren't sure we were gonna get the grant.
Yeah, so it's the whole, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So are we doing it whether we get the grant or not?
We put the $250,000 we transferred to capital and it's waiting there.
Okay.
Yeah, but in reality, if we get the grant money, we're only really spending $125,000 overall.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah,
But we still have to wait
yes.
for the grant.
Yeah, so we approved the transfer to the capital fund as a part of this budget. We transferred it, it's sitting there, it's waiting for it to be approved. So as soon as it gets approval, it can just start going.
I think they told us until you get a grant approval, you can't really start any work on these projects.
Yeah.
So if we started work, let's say we started work, theoretically, we could lose that money
Yes.
and not be able to, get half of it paid for.
I
So
see.
these grant funded projects take a lot more time than if they're not grant funded.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can start and then they'll just, we get the grant.
No. No, if we start actual construction before the grant is approved, they can deny paying for it. And the issue too is, the reason why we wanted these grants and we asked for them, our normal amount of building aid we would get is only 10%, and these are funding it, this one is 50 and the other one is more than 50% that's being funded. And because the last capital project was so expensive, we don't really have any building aid available, because they basically calculate how much a school of a certain size with a certain population aid they should get over a period of time, and we're already over that cap, so it wouldn't be eligible for aid anyway. So the fact that we're getting this stuff grant funded is great, but we just have to wait for the money. And you can go through your phase chart
So
there.
phase two, right? This is what the voters just approved in our last budget, is the retaining walls, the front stairs, sidewalks, curbs, and the roof above the main office, and the adjoining roof that is above the 1908 section of the building. And as you can see here, these projects are not grant funded, but they're still different steps in the project. So Joe will kind of go through each project kind of in the same way he did in phase one, and talk about projected timelines leading to substantial completion.
All right, so there's a few basic parts of this. We think the retaining walls as well as the masonry work is all going to be one contract, but as far as detailing them out here, they're separated out. So we have to repoint or reconstruct retaining walls in the lower courtyard, so the courtyard that's down here in elementary, and then by kindergarten there's walls that form out where that stairwell is that's blocked off, that needs to be reworked. And you also have a retaining wall that is behind the middle school. So there's a section of earth that's at one level, and then the retaining wall goes up, and then there's the fence that goes to the yard in the back. That retaining wall is coming apart in some spots, and it also has those top caps, those top bricks on the wall there basically are not attached at all. So if you push on them hard enough, they'll come off the wall. So it's also to pin them in place so they don't come off. And that was funded as a part of the budget that just got approved. So tonight we have on the agenda to approve the architect's proposal, to accept the proposal, and then the SECRA, which is the environmental requirement that you have to approve. And then we estimate that we could have submission to SED by August. and that would be CPL Architects and then a masonry contractor. And we think that the masonry contractor would do this and also the all of the concrete work. So based upon how things are going at the SED, they have the engineering review time and architectural review time is listed on their website as only being 1 to 2 weeks for both of those things, which is great. However, there is another bottleneck that is in the front of the office that is slowing things down. So we think it's probably still going to take until December till that gets approved based upon how things are going right now. So it's still going to be several months till we get approval. So we could award a contract in April and begin constructing in July. Probably, most likely because these are impacted areas where, you know, we're a small campus. We really don't want to put a lot of things off limits. If you're working in the courtyard, that's kind of a distraction for kids in school, you know, to have masons outside right out the window or whatever. You know, it's not really the greatest. So we would start in July. And we would begin that with all the rest of the masonry work. If we do a summer program, we still can. We just have to change our egress for the building. And that's not really going to be a problem. We could put a staff member at the end of the hallway by the gym with a desk and run a temporary phone line there, and that could be where people enter, for example. Or we could have people enter down at the bottom of elementary and you can come in that way. But we can work with it because essentially they'll have masonry work in the lower courtyard out back, and then they're going to be redoing the whole front, which we'll talk about today. So those staircases in the front, take all those out, redo those, redo the steel railing and the sidewalk and the curb. So it's basically taking out the front. Now down the end where there's work that was done as a part of the last project, that the curb out there and that entrance is still good. So that we have a handicap entrance there to the building that's still going to be fine. Nothing's going to be touched with that. And we also have handicap entrance down here at the lower elementary. You can get in on grade. So so we have no problems with egress, but we wouldn't do it in the regular school year because that's taking out a significant portion of the front of the building. We couldn't do that.
Yeah, we would, for the capacity in the summer is different when we have students here. If there was an emergency, we couldn't have the whole front not being able to exit from it. It would be a safety issue. So that's why at least for the front stairs and the curb and the sidewalk, that really needs to be done as a summer project. Yeah. Exactly. Fun. Good. Glad it wasn't.
No, not just you.
Is it not working?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we have the secret is a part of all the secret is for all the projects that we're doing as a part of the budget. It's all one thing. It's going to be one submission to SED, and it contains everything. But this will have one contractor, and then the roof that we'll get to will be another contractor. So we could get it, if we start in July, we would estimate that it would be, okay, we would award, forget, am I on the same one?
No, well, it's
Yeah,
just
so you gotta go forward.
same project timeline for the retaining walls as the front steps.
Yep.
But just letting the public know that these are kind of going in. This is important to know that we would want the front steps and sidewalk returned for general use by August 26th, prior to our staff coming back for professional learning. Substantial completion just means that the architects have signed off on anything, any punch list stuff, they're all done, and they say it's all done. that would probably be November 26th. But these two projects will kind of like sync each other. The masonry could be done, pieces of it during the school year. The front steps really got to get done over the summer.
Yeah. We're going the wrong way.
No, this is,
Oh, right.
this is good, but I
Yeah.
don't even think I hit a button.
No, it's me. I'm doing
Magic.
stuff not working.
Seven fingers will stretch.
All right, okay, so, yeah, so the architect will do what's called a certificate of occupancy inspection, and he'll make sure that the stairwell and everything is safe in order to start school. So that's what will happen in August. Okay, so the roof over the original 1908 building, even though we did replace some sections, two emergency projects, as a matter of fact, that we replaced several sections, both on Columbus Day. And we still have more to do that we didn't do yet. But it's not an emergency per se, because it's not actually leaking right now. Well, one of them is. But we are going to replace all the rest of the shingles and abate the asbestos-containing waterproofing layer, install larger gutters, because the gutters, there's two problems. The one is they put 2 layers of shingles on, and when they put the second layer on, it went a little bit too far, so it's basically a ramp bypassing the gutter, and it's just going on the ground. All right, so we got to get all that, put a little bit larger gutter, because those are pitched pretty steeply, so the water's really moving when it gets down to the gutter. So we want it to be a little bit bigger. And then, but it has to be copper, because it's a historic building, and that's what it was on it when it was originally built, so we have to do that again. Remove the foam roof and replace with build-up insulation and EPDM, and that's funded as a part of the budget too. All right, if you want to hit the button again. Okay, so the secret is tonight. We would submit by August. We would need CPL architects. We would have a roofing / abatement contractor, which would mostly likely be a cooperative contract. If the numbers work, we might use someone that we have used before, so we'll see how that goes. And then we need a asbestos designer. So asbestos designer is, that's an exclusion from the architect's contract. So we have to have an additional design firm that designs the asbestos drawings and then signs off that it is correct for what the removals are. So WSP did the asbestos design work for our last project, and they did a good job. They are the incumbent, and it's a professional service. Any design related stuff is professional service. So we believe that because they're an incumbent, they have the drawings already, they have knowledge of the site, they are the company that does our HARA report updates, our triennials. They would be the most economical way of doing that. So we are retaining them to do the design work for the abatement design, and then we will use a third-party testing and monitoring company. We probably issue another RFP for that. Basically, we rework one that we did a couple of years ago and reissue it. So we could get approval by December, award a contract in January, especially if we don't have to bid, we can award it pretty soon after. If the weather is warm enough, we potentially would do this over the end of March, spring break. So, because we got to do an abatement. So if we don't get that break time, because the abatement's going to be, we can't fit it on a one-day type of holiday. We need a couple more days, I think, because there's a bunch of faces on that section, and then we have the flat roof that might need to be abated as well. So if it's warm enough for them to be able to temp the roof back in to be sealed weather tight in the temperature, if the temperature is warm enough, we would do it then. If not, it's going to have to wait till July, because and then we would have to work it around summer school.
Yep.
And might have to move the summer school schedule a little bit to do a roofing, which was a mistake.
Or move summer school.
Yeah.
So, we'll hope for warm weather over that spring break.
Yeah.
A little earlier next year.
Yeah, it is. End of
Yeah,
March
it's
into
early.
the first couple days of April.
And it really, the shingles themselves are not a problem with the cold weather. It's the sealants for the flat roof and any of the sealants that they might use on flashing and things. They don't really like temperatures below 40. So we might, yeah, and if you get rained out, you're done. Yeah,
They don't roof in the rain.
not usually. Not if you can help it. Yeah.
They don't want to roof the bay this year.
So if that works out, spring break, we would be done. It doesn't really need, that next line isn't really needed, but we would have it substantially complete with all the punch lists and everything by November.
All right. Phase 3 is not really a phase because this project may or may not go forward, but it is in this budget for the immersive forest classroom, at least for the design element. So I'm going to take us through, if the district and the board decides to move forward with this, what would it look like, how long would it take, and what would the steps in the process be? So first, there's a couple steps in this process. This, unlike the other plans, requires a little bit more engagement with the community, engagement with the board, engagement with their architects. And what the public approved in this last budget is a design and an engagement with our architects to imagine and create and design and come up with a scope and also come up with a budget for what this could look like and what would have to be considered for future budget or budgets, depending on where the district and the board wants to go. So number one, what was approved is to work with the architects, and we would need to establish a planning committee. We would do this in the fall because if we were going to consider a capital project of this type, we'd have to do it in time for putting it as part of our budget. So this would establish a planning design committee led by the architects. We would have to develop a budget, a scope of the work, and a final design, ultimately with the Board of Education. We would have to engage, if we decide to move forward, not only just in the designing of it, but if we decide to move forward with this project, engaging the community about the support for or against this project and really get a litmus test of where we're at with it. And we need to consider this if we were going to move forward as a budget item for the 26-27 school year. And magically it just turns, right? So a couple of things that we should know is what has been approved is the design process for this. We would make sure that we target any recommendation to be considered in terms of budget and scope and planning to the finance committee, and we'd have to have a plan for consideration to the finance committee by February of 2026. The project team would be our architects. We'd have to bid out a general contractor. Raise your hands. Not working. There we go. And then, as I've said before, Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES, their urban forestry program is really interested in a real world project. This could also help defer some of the costs in terms of labor. They're interested in it. That's potential, or any other CTE program that wants to get involved. Around the edges, that could help us with costs and give back to the community and allow students with real hands-on experience in those CTE or programs. So, if the board decided to move forward with this, we'd want to establish a committee in the fall. We would have students and community members and board members part of this committee. The architects would work us through the process of what are you looking for, what is the scope of this, what do you want to accomplish here, and then they would work something up. Are there any budgetary considerations? Ultimately, it would have to go to the finance committee and then for board deliberation and discussion. Let's say that the board decided to move forward.
We would target public approval on May 2026 for, as part of the 26-27 budget. Assuming that it passes, right, we would have to then submit final plans to SED. We would look that by the time architects were able to do the plans, we would, and there may be other agencies involved in this. This is not a school building, this is a forest. So there may be other agencies, zoning, planning. So there are other agencies that, unlike a roof project, that we may have to consider and submit plans to for approval. We would like to do that if this plan moves forward, again, the big if, by February of 2027. At that point, let's say that we got approval. We would hope by May 2027 we could begin construction in May 2027. And again, the project itself isn't incredibly complicated, but again, those things take time, and we would hope that the project is substantially completed by October of 2027. So those are all of the outstanding projects, or proposed projects, that the board and the community and the district has undertaken at this point. So I know that was long, but we really wanted to lay it out, and it is more complex than just, getting a plumber in to change your hot water.
Thank you so much for bringing us through that. I think it's important to see how long it takes once we have the approvals, and while we greatly appreciate the grant money, and our representatives who have fought to win us that grant money, it does add some layers of work. And thank you, Joe and Greg, for going through that process, which is time consuming and lengthy. Do I have any questions? I will go for it.
For the forest, would that be a budget advisory committee, or would that be a separate committee?
That would be a separate design and planning committee. We would want people who are interested in it. We absolutely want board members on it, because ultimately it's the board decisions of whether or not to go forward with it, to create this and put it in a school budget. But we want some students on it. We want some faculty on it. We really want a kind of a wide swath, not too big that we're paralyzed to make decisions, but big enough that we really get a nice representative swath of the community to work with our architects who will lead us through a process, and they're familiar with doing plans like this.
So I think what Dan and I talked about was maybe doing a subcommittee of the facilities committee. So it wouldn't be the same as the facilities committee. So as you're thinking about what you would like, what committees you would like to be on for next year, which we will address in July at the reorg, that would be another one to add on that we could have up to three board members on, and would be really, really fun experience.
Yeah, we probably want to invite the public and the students and staff if they're interested as well in August to start participating in September. Because we would want to have a few. We want to have probably, it'll be four meetings most likely. Maybe one in September, 2 in October, 1 in December, and if they have their last meeting in December, that gives the architect enough time to get a budget and a concept together for February. So that's kind of the overall thing. And then we probably will be sending this information to the zoning board, the plant, whoever we think that wants to know what it's about. Because it's a different project. It's while we do have the rights to be able to do things on this property, and this is well within what was deeded to the school as an acceptable use, we still want to be appropriate neighbors and do what's required, to make sure everyone understands what we're doing.
Well said. All right, any other questions before we move on? All right, thank you very much. That brings me to the first public comment. Public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns in accordance with policy 1510 of the Garrison Union Free School District. Any person wishing to speak shall comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students and personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. The board will listen to comments but will not engage in dialogue. Any necessary follow-up will be noted and provided through the appropriate channel. Members of the public wishing to comment during board meetings are asked to place their name and town of residence on the sign-in sheet. Commenters will be invited to the podium to address the board. Sign-in sheet here. All right, I don't have anyone signed up, so I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. There'll be another option later in the meeting. We're going to move on to the minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the minutes of the regular workshop meeting of May 7th, 2025, and the regular meeting of May 20th, 2025, as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. Do I have any questions on the minutes as presented or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Okay. That brings me to committee reports. Okay, so we had an audit committee meeting right before this. Peter is there. Ken, sorry you couldn't make it. It was really fun. Alan from O'Connor Davies came. He was the head of our audit again from last year. I think he really enjoys us. We basically talked about timeline and process. So what we are looking at right now, they're going to do the risk assessment at the end of this month. They will be in the building in early July. Thank you in advance to our business office, Genevieve and Joe, for providing them all the material they need. We should hope to have a draft audit by September for the committee to review, which we'll have another audit committee meeting, and then it will come to the full board in October. If you have any questions or concerns about the audit or things you want them to look at, now is the time to reach out. Let me know. I can put you in touch with the auditors. They will interview, I believe, 2 board members as part of this process, but if anything comes to mind, please reach out. So that's an overview of what we did in the meeting. We just basically talked about the process and listened to fun audit stories. So, yeah, it was great. Okay. Any questions? I'm going to kick it over to policy.
So the policy committee meeting, which is not quite as fun as an audit committee meeting, admit to having been to the audit committee meetings last year. So we met on May 13th via Zoom from 5:30 to approximately 6:30 p.m. We reviewed 5 different policies and determined the next steps. We concluded that 2 of the policies we had just recently adopted in March. These are recommendations out of our policy. That's we did a reward policy service. And then we requested that Dr. Stoll review 1 policy with clinical staff and then send it to the attorney so we can be discussed at the next policy committee meeting. We had 2 policies that we were going to bring to the board tonight for first reading, but in reading what's posted, I noticed some errors that I should have noticed over the weekend. So I'm going to ask that we table the first reading at this point.
When we get to that, we'll have a motion forward.
And then we also talked about the need for a new policy regarding the bell-to-bell cell phone ban, which we discussed as well. And we noted that that was the final policy committee meeting for the 24-25 year, knowing though that we might be called on in June for that bell-to-bell internet-enabled item policy. And that at our June meeting, at our July meeting, we'll know if there's going to be a policy for next year. Whatever's needed.
Any questions for a policy committee? Most of you are here.
You're all
All here. Thank you, Jen. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on, if there's no questions, to the CSE CPSE recommendations. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District approve the Committee on Special Education, CSE, and Committee on Preschool Special Education, CPSE recommendations and student placements. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Nays, abstentions. Moving on to policy readings, I would like to ask for a motion to table the first readings of policy 3421 and the first reading of policy 5685 until a future meeting. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. We'll return to those. Moving on to the personnel consent agenda. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, does hereby approve the items of the personnel consent agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All right.
I just want to say we're excited to have Ms. Gargaro and Mr. Keegan return as our girls, as co-coaches for our girls modified soccer. And I'm excited to recommend that Mr. Beckley continue as our athletic director. They've done a great job, and I can't wait for the fall to watch the girls really show their stuff.
Do I have any questions on the consent agenda? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Okay, this moves me on to new business. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves new business items B through E and items G through I as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Thank you. If there were any on there that you wish to speak to, I can just say I want to thank Haldane for their willingness to extend the contract. This will cover students who will be in 8th grade next year at the same rate as our other partner districts, and will cover them for the 4 years. It also has a stipulation that by July 1st of next year, we will negotiate for the next cohort again. Appreciate that. Okay, any questions or comments? Go ahead and move to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays, abstentions. Right. Item F, request for approval of the SECRA resolution 2025 roofing and masonry project. I'm going to go ahead and let you know in advance that I have to read all of this. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby approve the following SECRA resolution. SECRA Resolution 2025 Roofing and Masonry Project. Whereas the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District has proposed to undertake a project consisting of the repair and or replacement of several sections of roofing from the Garrison School building, 3 front staircases and railings, sections of sidewalks and curbing, and several retaining walls, and whereas the board wishes to fully comply with its obligations under the State Environmental Quality Review Act and the regulations thereunder, SECRA, with respect to the proposed action in its capacity as lead agency. And whereas the board has carefully considered the nature and scope of the proposed action, and whereas upon review of the foregoing, the board makes the following determinations. 1. The proposed action involves the repair and or replacement of the sections of the district school building roof and the abatement of any hazardous material made necessary by the repair and or replacement, the repair and replacement of masonry staircases and associated metal railings, masonry sidewalks, curbing, and retaining walls. The board hereby declares the district as the lead agency for proposed purposes of SECRA associated with the project. The deteriorated condition, 3, the deteriorated condition may expose the district's property to damage and interferes with the district's operations, and repair and or replacement is required to preserve the property of the district. 4, the repair and or replacement of the roofing and masonry is to be performed to cause the least change or disturbance practicable under the circumstances. 5, the maintenance or repair involving no substantial changes in an existing facility or structure within the meaning of 6 NYCRR 6175, and or alternatively the replacement, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of a structure or facility in kind within the meaning of 6 NYCRR 617.5, section 2. The proposed action will in no case have, 6. The proposed action will in no case have a significant adverse impact on the environment based on the criteria contained in 6 NYCRR 617.7 and is not otherwise a type 1 action as defined by 6 NYCRR 617.47. The proposed action is a type 2 action within the meaning of 6 NYCRR 617.5 and is therefore not subject to review under SECRA and the regulations thereunder. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board finds and concludes that the proposed action is a type 2 action within the meaning of 6 NYCRA 617.5 and therefore is not subject to review under SECRA and the regulations thereunder. May I have a motion, please?
Read that again.
In Spanish?
I have a question about
She did that without taking a single breath.
So
That was really impressive.
Second.
Thank you. We do need to do a roll call vote on this one, and then we will be getting statements at the end. I'm going to turn to Genevieve for a roll call vote, please.
Jocelyn Appicello,
Excused.
Eric Arnold,
Yes.
Jennifer Harrington Wilson.
Yes.
Dan Jasna,
Excused.
Peter Lesser,
Yes.
Kent Schott,
Yes.
Sarah Torme.
Yes. All right. Passes. Thank you all for that. I will point out that Dusty did not attend this meeting, but did say I had to read the whole packet.
That's just a practical joke.
I know what it felt like. All right, excuse me for just a moment while I get to where I'm at. That should bring me to our next public comment section. I'm not going to read the paragraph again on our policies. As no one is here, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and move on to board member comment and other discussion. Eric?
I'm good.
Okay. Jen?
Thank you for reading all of that.
Oh, you're welcome. Should have read it in advance. Peter?
Just to say it was great to have the students here. I love their projects. It's great to see civics being a big part of our curriculum, and I hope we can do more of that. So, very impressive.
Thank you. Ken?
Just congratulations to everybody on that climate summit, and all the work that was put into that, and just all the, it's an exciting time of year, all the stuff going on, little graduations, big graduations, so a lot to look forward to.
Thank you. And I do have one other comment this evening. It looks like that board retreat is going to happen on that Monday in July.
28th.
Thank you. So just keep that on your calendar. It'll be an evening retreat, and if we need more time to meet as a group, we will find another time. So please do not release that date for any reason. Okay, that's all I've got. I'm going to go ahead and move on. We do not have any reason to enter executive session this evening. That brings us to adjournment. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby adjourns the regular meeting of June 4th, 2025. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions?